Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Clark, research analyst with Money & Markets, here with your weekly marijuana market update. Now, before I start, as I do with each and every video, I do want to make sure you head over to moneyandmarkets.com, sign up for our free daily e-letter from Sunday to Saturday. You get a free e-letter that contains safe, sound, smart, and simple profitable investment information from myself, from Charles Sizemore, from Adam O'Dell, and many others on our team that work very hard to make sure you get that information each and every morning, even on the weekends, delivered straight to your inbox for free. So go to moneymarkets.com if you have not already. Sign up to get our free daily e-letter. If you have, thank you very much. We certainly do appreciate that, and we look forward to providing you with much more content as we go on. Now on with today's podcast. Today I'm going to talk about a couple things, and I'll try to be brief on each one of them. Michigan recently released its cannabis sales figures for March, and they are big, and I'm going to tell you what that means. And then I'm going to dive back into our reader mailbag and do analysis of a company asked by a reader, the Flowr Corporation. I'll tell you more about that in just a bit, but I'll start with Michigan. Now, the Michigan Marijuana Regulatory Agency recently released the state's adult use and medical marijuana sales figures for the month of March. And to say they're impressive would probably be selling it a little short. Adult use sales topped $98 million for the month. That's by far the highest monthly sales figure since adult cannabis became legal in the state in 2019. It's a 46% jump in sales from the previous quarter and a 345% increase in sales from March of last year. Now, in the first quarter of 2021, adult use sales were $232 million, a little less than half of the $510 million of sales in all of 2020. So just to kind of put that in perspective, they have already reached about the halfway mark in just the first quarter of the sales of adult use cannabis from last year. So they did it in half the time, which is really impressive. Medical marijuana sales also jumped for the month. Medical marijuana sales went from about 38 million in February to 48 million in March. That's about a 26% increase quarter over quarter, a 60% boost from March of last year. Medical marijuana sales are now on pace to hit about 508 million for the year. That's an increase from the 474 million they had last year. Now, for the first quarter of 2021, if you combine both adult use and medical use sales, it was nearly $360 million for just the first 3 months of 2020. At that pace, Michigan could see combined sales of $1.4 billion, well outpacing 2020 sales of just $984 million. First quarter sales in Michigan have already surpassed the entire year of sales in the state in 2019, which was around $288 million. I bring this up because we're looking to New York, which recently passed adult use legalization, as the next big catalyst for cannabis companies. Cannabis sales in Michigan have grown far and fast since legalization. It took them just a couple years since adult use was fully legalized to really hit. They're close to $100 million in adult use sales in 1 month. So and you have to consider that the population in New York is about double what it is in Michigan. When you count New York City, the population in New York City is about as much as it is in Michigan total. It's about 10 million in Michigan, almost 20 million in New York, give or take. It's not, those aren't exact figures. But so if Michigan sales are any indication, it's correct to assume that sales in the Empire State are going to explode after sales start sometime next year. And the cannabis companies in the market are going to reap the benefits in the long run. So I foresee big things out of New York. I think it could be, the trend could be even faster in terms of sales, considering how, right now they have to go across to New Jersey to get it, or up to Massachusetts to get it. Once you're able to get it, they tap that population size market in Buffalo, in Albany, in New York City. Once in Long Island, once they start tapping these markets, I think the sales are going to explode. And cannabis companies that are making inroads into New York and will start applying for those licenses once the groundwork is laid are going to be huge winners for you. Now, I want to address an email from a viewer to discuss a particular stock. Warren emailed me. He emailed me at feedback@moneyandmarkets.com. We'll drop that email address down below there in case you do want to ask a question about the cannabis market. He said, I was wondering about a couple penny stocks. Well, it's cannabis, so I kind of figure a lot of cannabis stocks are traded over the counter and are penny stocks. But do these two have any future? And he mentions the Flowr Corporation and MetaPharm Labs Corporation. And he said, love your info and your takes. Of course, I'd be more than happy to. Appreciate the email. Thank you so much, Warren. Again, you can email me anytime. Feedback@moneymarkets.com. and ask your questions. I try to answer on each one of these weekly updates. Now, I've recently discussed MediPharm Labs Corporation in a marijuana market update back in February. So you can check that out here on our YouTube channel. My position really hasn't changed a whole lot on it, and not a whole lot has changed with the company. So you can go back and review that and get my take on that. So today I'm going to focus on the Flowr Corporation. It trades over the counter. The ticker symbol is FLWPF. It's a Toronto-based company. It cultivates, produces, and sells cannabis in Canada. It also does have operations in Europe and Australia. Now, according to its website, its strains that it blends are indica and hybrid strains in its products. It sells those products in partner retail outlets, as well as in, I thought this was interesting, websites that are dedicated to specific Canadian provinces. Rules in Canada in terms of cannabis sales vary from province to province. What you see in British Columbia is not the same as what you see in Ontario or Newfoundland or anywhere like that. So each state kind of has their own set. Now, there's a lot of similarities between them all, but there are some differences. So the way that companies have to set up, especially online marketplaces, varies from province to province. So what Flowr Corporation has done is they've actually set up websites that allow that are specific to the specific province. So there's a website for British Columbia, one for Alberta, one for Saskatchewan, so on and so forth. So because all the rules are different rather. So which is interesting, but in the end, it probably doesn't generate and mean a whole lot in terms of what this company does with its bottom line. Speaking of financially, the company has grown steadily over the last few years. It started out with about 2.3 million in revenue back in 2018. That grew to about 7.4 million last year in total revenue. But its projections for the next 2 years have me a little perplexed. Estimates have total revenue jumping to almost $32 million this year, and $40 million in 2022. That's a 440% increase in just 2 years. That is a massive projection. The issue here is I don't really understand how they see that, where that comes from. I didn't really note a whole lot in terms of expansion. I could very well be missing something. There may be something out there that I'm just not seeing. I just don't see how that projection can actually hold water. Now, even if those numbers were accurate, and I'm not saying they're not, I'm just saying I'm a little skeptical about it. The company is struggling to make money, to say the least. Now, the chart I'm going to show you here shows that in 2016, when they made the least amount of money, they actually lost the least amount of money. They recorded net income of about $1.1 million. But then if you fast forward to 2020, where they actually made 7.4 million in total revenue, they lost 26.2 million. Massive losses. So as you can see, even with a 440% projected rise in total revenue, this company is still projecting losses of between 14 million and 16 million in each of the next 2 years. That's still a good amount of losses, even with revenue projections being as high as they are. Now, the company's stock has also underperformed, to say the least. Unlike most cannabis stocks, FLWPF did not sustain any rebound from the March 2020 coronavirus crash. In fact, over the last 12 months, which started after the crash in March, and we're talking now at the end in April, so 12 months is April to April, the stock has actually fallen nearly 52%. And so all told, I'm really reluctant to put a lot of faith in the projected sales figures over the next 2 years. The company continues to lose money, and the stock price just continues to trend downward. It's had some peaks and it's popped up a little bit, but all in all, this trend is downward, and I'm not sold on it yet. Now, this could be a buy the dip situation. The struggle I have here is I don't really know where the dip is actually going to end. The stock could still move to a lower bottom, meaning that if you bought it now, it would still take even more time before you actually found gains. Now, I'm not saying it's not gonna pick up. I'm not saying that the Flowr Corporation is a bad company or anything like that. I'm just saying that if you look at the technicals and if you look at the financials, there's just not a lot that draws me to it outside of the fact that it is so low price and it continues to go down. I would need to see a little bit different stock pattern in its chart before I would say, okay, maybe we've reached a bottom. Maybe when we start testing some resistance at the bottom, then I can say, okay, maybe now we've hit a bottom and we'll start to see an upward trend. I don't see it yet. So maybe at some point down the road, here in the next weeks or months, that may happen. It's just not there as of right now. So thanks again, Warren. I do appreciate your question. Again, it's feedback@moneyandmarkets.com is where you can email me and ask me your questions and maybe some stocks you'd like me to look at and things like that. Now, I want to take a really brief look at our Money and Markets Cannabis watch list. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Our overall watch list is seeing average gains of about 44% as of today. I'm recording this on Tuesday. That's up from 40% last week, which is great. We're starting to pick things back up again. And several of our watch list companies are going to be reporting earnings here very soon. Perkin-Elmer trades on the New York Stock Exchange under PKI. They will release quarterly earnings on May 3rd. Scott's Miracle-Gro and Schweitzer Mounted are going to be reporting their quarterly earnings on May 4th. And then Grow Generation is going to report quarterly earnings on May 13th. I am anticipating some year-over-year growth for Grow Generation in terms of earnings. I'm feeling really good about that. I don't know how much they may pop or what their stock price may do, but I am encouraged by, I think we're going to see some higher earnings, maybe earnings beats and revenue beats for Grow Generation. The company also just released news that they have signed a lease for 40,000 square feet of warehouse and showroom space in Jackson, Mississippi. This firmly puts them in that state's medical marijuana market, which voters just approved in the November election. So they're already starting to get some inroads, and I feel really good about that. Turning Point Brands released its quarterly earnings earlier this week, posted a 56% year-over-year increase in earnings, an 18.6% jump in revenue. Earnings did miss analyst projections, but revenue did beat. So far, the stock has responded by moving upwards, which is great. It's actually now our best performing stock. It took over for Grow Generation. Turning Point, I think, is up about 70%, 72%. So that's great. Moving upwards, that's exactly what we want to see. I've had some questions about other stocks to evaluate. I'm going to address those in coming weeks, so make sure you stay tuned. If you do have a cannabis stock you'd like me to look at, or maybe a sector question, email me at feedback@moneyandmarkets.com. I would love to take your questions. Coming up this week, we'll have much more with the Bull and the Bear podcast. Towards the weekend, Charles and Adam may join me, and we'll talk about something involving the stock market. I'm not going to give you too much of an indication as to what, because I honestly don't know yet. So once we figure that out, we'll get that out and let you know that is coming. Don't forget to check out our new YouTube series that we have on our YouTube channel, Ask Adam Anything. This is where I get to sit down and ask Adam Odell, our chief investment strategist, any question you ask. Nothing is off the table, and you can email those questions to me at feedback@moneymarkets.com. Also, Green Zone Fortune's co-editor Charles Sizemore has a weekly video series called Investing with Charles. He breaks down stocks. He's a whiz when it comes to dividend stocks. So if you're looking for income producing stocks for your portfolio, it is definitely worth your time to check out Investing with Charles on our YouTube channel. Also, check out moneymarkets.com each and every day, where we produce content that is safe, sound, smart, and simple, and more importantly, providing you profitable information for your portfolio. I'm Matt Clark, research analyst from Money and Markets, the host of the Bull and the Bear podcast and the Marijuana Market Update. Until next time, everyone, safe trading.